All right. So, hi everybody. We are here with Brian, and Brian is on the phone. He's going to hang out with us while we investigate his mom's iPhone 6s Plus. So, let's start with a note. This is part of our Apple Lied to Me series, and we're going to check out what happened when Brian went to the Apple store. So, let's all click over, and let me turn this off. And here's the note, which is iPhone 6s won't power on even when it's plugged in. The Genius bar is unable to help, and we need to get those photos back. So while I open up this phone, Brian, why don't you tell me about your experience with this phone so far? So this is Mom's phone. She calls you freaking out one day.
Yeah. Well, I was up actually visiting them, and she said that her phone powered down. She had to go get a new phone because it was like wedding weekend.
Oh, geez.
So she needed something for pictures and whatnot. And this one has all the pictures of my nephew and her grandson on it. And so she was pretty upset.
Yep. Was it your wedding?
No, not my wedding. My two cousins were getting married.
Gotcha. And you're from Maryland, right?
I'm originally from upstate New York, but I'm in
You
Maryland.
are? Oh my God, that's like super opposite. I'm originally from Maryland, and we have a friend in common, kind of, right? So you said in your ticket that you mentioned someone I went to high school with, Lisa Brett, who is now Lisa Lee, and I'm pretty sure that she still lives back in my hometown, which is on the eastern shore of Maryland.
Yeah, I think she works out of Wallops, but I know she works on Atlas, and that's one of the missions that we handle on one of my
Missions?
missions. Yeah.
Missions? What's a mission? So where do you work?
I work for NASA out of Goddard Space Flight Center.
You work for NASA. So you go into space a lot, or just like once a month?
It's a once-a-month deal, yeah. I don't want to spend too much money sending us up to space.
Right. So how did you get into that? Because my kids do robotics, and last year was their first year. They were in the Lego robotics, and it was, this sort of, space mission and choose some sort of a problem to solve in space or something like that. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it was really cool. They chose something like a muscle stimulation thing they were going to build. Probably already exists. I mean, they are in 7th grade. But who knows? Maybe it's a...
Yeah, but still, that's awesome for 7th graders to...
Yeah, it was a cool little thing to do. So what kind of stuff goes on? Like, what is it? How do you end up working at NASA from 7th grade?
I got really lucky because I moved down here kind of with no plan for education. I just, figured I'd go back to college and see what I liked, and I stumbled into network engineering, which led me to cybersecurity.
Ooh, cybersecurity.
The guy I interned with at the college got a gig at NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day he was just like, hey, we need, sysadmins and security guys. Shoot me your resume. And so that's how
I met some security guys, cybersecurity guys this year, and I think that they described the coolest job in the world, as far as I know, which is penetration testing. That they were telling me that you can that you kind of get a green light to dress up however you want as like a Time Warner Cable guy and walk into Marriott hotels, for example, and try to use a device to sniff the Wi-Fi network and see if you can figure out this one's encrypted. That's probably where the credit card information is. Is that really a thing?
Social engineering.
Yeah. That sounds super fun. I want to do that. All right. So tell me about your mom. So mom says phone's not working, and then what did you do next?
So, I just did the typical, she's not very tech savvy, so, I made sure that it couldn't just be rebooted, plugged it in.
So you tried turning it off and on.
Yep, exactly. And then I tried giving it an actual power source, because I wasn't sure if the battery was just gone on it.
So
I don't deal much with Apple stuff, so.
Yep. So what do you mean you gave it a power source? Did you take this phone apart?
No. I just plugged it into
I see.
power source.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. And so we're looking at it kind of under the microscope. All I've done is just taken off the screen, and I'm just kind of giving it a glance, and looking for anything that kind of jumps out at me as abnormal. And so far, it looks like the inside of a normal iPhone 6s Plus as far as I can tell. So when the plugging it in and stuff doesn't work, then what'd you do next?
Well, then I was like, we'll take it to the Genius Bar, because they're all geniuses. They'll figure it out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. One would think. So
Yeah.
what did the Genius, tell me the Genius magic that they applied to this phone.
They plugged it into their iPad, ran their diagnostic software on it, whatever that is.
Yeah, what is that? That's kind of what I want to know. Like, do they do that in front of you, or do they take it behind the curtain?
It's just some app they do, but they do it like right in front of you. They bring up the laptop and just run it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time they ran it, it just stalled out on them, so they had to restart it.
Okay. So that's one of the things when we teach a class here that students are surprised that there really isn't fancy diagnostic software like there is for your car. You know, like you can plug a car in and it'll be like, oh, error code, whatever means this. That doesn't really exist because Apple doesn't really do hardware repair. Louis Rossman, no, send a voicemail. Sorry. I hope he's not trying to tell me something's wrong with this stream. Is this stream okay? Hey, chat, tell me if this stream is okay or not. So they're always surprised that there isn't really anything that can just kind of plug in and tell you what's wrong with the phone because Apple doesn't really do hardware repair. They don't have such a thing. It doesn't make sense for them to develop that. Any kind of troubleshooting is going to be done by a very limited group of people that are back on, I guess, a failure analysis team back at the mothership that regular people are never going to actually see. So
that was pretty surprising. Like I figured at least they would have some people on staff.
Right. Yes. Nope. All right. Stream says everything's okay. And can I ask who the hell named it Genius Bar? That's just dumb. All right. So then they said, what were your options?
Well, they tried to upsell us on another phone. They were like, oh, if we can't get this one working, can we just, sell you on the new iPhone or whatever? And it's like, no, we didn't come in here to buy a phone. We just want, get the pictures off of this.
Right, sure.
And I guess after that, they were like, well, if we can't recover anything, then we have a list of, technicians that we would recommend you to go to, and that's all we can do for you.
Mm-hmm. And so who was that? Like, so did you call up those guys, or what was the deal? Like, what happens if you do that?
I didn't get the list from them because at the time I was just Googling, recommended places to actually get this fixed, and your place came up, and I think one other place came up. I can't remember the name of, but I shot you guys both emails right there. So
was the other one Louis Rossman? Because he just called, and sorry, Louis, too slow.
Actually,
That's pretty funny. So then you were talking on internal Slack and found out that Lisa was an old friend. That's pretty cool. Yep. All right. Perfect. Okay. So I don't know if we can fix your phone or not, but your note just sounded pretty classic. And we started this Apple Lied to Me series where we're just kind of tired of seeing. We've done a lot of news. This to me feels like beating a dead horse because I've done this same video so many times, and we did a sort of a relatively well received news story with CBC last year that kind of showed that it's pretty routine for Apple to either tell people there's nothing that anyone can do. It's impossible to recover your dead phone and make it turn back on. And it's also that they sort of say that indirectly by quoting you people or referring you to people that are going to charge $2,000, which is indirectly not feasible for most people. So so that's why we kind of started this, hey, let's just fix some phones live and see how common this is. And so your phone kind of came up as, this one will be fun, and we'll see what we can do. So here we are right now. You can see on the screen, this is the logic board that's still in the iPhone housing. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply a DC power source right there at the battery connector. So that's kind of similar to applying a power source down through the charge port like you tried back at home. But a phone will actually not boot just off of the DC power or out of the USB. So we're going to apply a voltage here at the battery, and then we're going to see what happens. And usually on a dead phone, we'll get a current consumption pattern, and that will give us a clue what kind of a problem. Is the phone brain dead? Does it have a software problem or a flash memory error or storage problem? Does it have some sort of a short circuit on a main power rail? Does it have a short circuit on some sort of a minor power rail? Or does it have a boot loop? Or does it actually boot up just fine but has no image or no way to actually tell us that it's turned on? So we're going to get a clue by plugging this in. So I'm going to plug in my DC power supply, which I've set to just about 4 volts, which is a standard battery. And you can't see it, but off here to my left, I can see that I now have 3 amps of current. That's really high. That's too much. So I'm going to disconnect that. And that tells me that this has a short circuit, which is one of the most classic problems that you could possibly have, that I'm pretty sure even my 7th grader could figure out whether or not a phone has a short circuit on a major power rail. And if so, what to do about it. So let's go ahead and before we just go, so therefore it's a short, let's confirm that with a multimeter. So the next thing I'm going to do is keep unscrewing here to take the actual logic board out. We're going to use the multimeter to see if we can find what line is actually short. It's probably the main power rail, but we don't know for sure. It could be a few others. And then we'll kind of go from there. So as far as microsolderers go, when we get something that's got a VCC main short, we go, all right, that one's that's sort of one of our favorites. Everybody likes a short circuit on the main power rail because it's generally something we can track down and find. It'll have, you know, some chip or some capacitor. It felt like being a wire to ground. So in your industry, what's the like juicy problem that's the easy one that everybody likes to solve? Do you have such a thing?
I don't know. Day by day, it's just all kind of a mess.
Yeah. So you don't have a lot of like repeats of the same stuff?
No, because every mission uses kind of like custom written software. So every day it's just kind of something new to track down and figure out.
And what kind of skills are good for your job? Just sort of, I'm assuming you do a lot of troubleshooting just like we do, right?
Yep. Troubleshooting, problem solving, just that sort of thing. Trying to think out of the box to approach different solutions.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds a lot like I think it's hard to teach people that skill. Do you have to do any teaching or training in your job?
We do a little bit of training, but I was also a professor at a local community college for a little while, and yeah, like there's definitely like an appetite for that knowledge and critical thinking that I think is just, some people just lack it.
Yeah. So what did you teach at a community college?
I taught intro to cybersecurity, cryptography, intrusion detection, and firewalls.
I need a firewall. I first thought about firewalls today when my forum, and to you guys in stream that are on my forum, thank you so much for your patience as we've been dealing with forum hackers. I have a vBulletin run forum that was set up for me by a friend, so I'm not super into how it was set up, what's the where is everything? I don't know. I just kind of use it as an administrator, but I didn't set it up or maintain it. I don't even know where the host is or who the host is. So I'm that kind of user, everyone's favorite. I get called grandma a lot for that kind of stuff. So then it got repeatedly hacked this last couple of weeks and went down like a bunch of times, so much so that the host turns out to be Bluehost, and they said, get out, we're not hosting anymore. You have malicious code and we don't want to be any part of that. So that sucks. So then they were like, so you got to pay $500 for a firewall. Is that like a thing? And then my web guy is like, hosts don't really do that. That's kind of messed up. What do you think? Is that typical for a host to say GTFO pretty much?
It depends on the host, I think. Like we do a lot of self-hosting, so we don't actually get host to host any of our web pages. We do it all internally.
Yeah. Well, that's what my web guy does. My web guy that hosts our site, he's like, not going to deal with any third-party stuff ever. And then when this happened, he's like, see? And that's why. But I'm like, well, I can't really have you build a forum from scratch when there's like really, these sort of like forum solutions that have been around for a long time are pretty robust. And I'm not sure it makes sense for something my size to develop a custom forum. I don't know. So it's we're in need of cybersecurity. What I really want to do is I want to go on cyber defense and figure out who the hell this is, and then obviously go burn down their house. What kind of revenge do you guys specialize in over there as cybersecurity experts? Do you have a revenge department?
No, because it's actually against the law.
God damn it! Oh man. Well, is there an unauthorized revenge department? I need an unauthorized revenge department.
I mean, you could go to the Russian forum on the dark web and hire some revenge hackers.
Yeah. Well, is it the kind of thing, like, if I really, I don't, I'm just kind of kidding around, but if I really cared and I really wanted to like figure out who the hell put malicious code on my forum, would it be possible to do that, or is that not feasible?
Oh yeah, no, it's possible. I mean, it depends on
Oh, really?
how they're actually attacking your forums, but
Yeah.
probably left footprints somewhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably a bunch of 7-year-olds, because I'm pretty sure that forum was like using, just an older, like, there's known exploits kind of thing. All right, here we have your board out. Ding, ding, there it is. Everything looks totally normal on this board. There is some fingernail polish. That's probably because I let Betsy and Maisie paint my fingers, which probably isn't a good idea if you are trying to fix boards. So we're going to just do a test here to see what is a sort of relative measure of the resistance. This is a representative spot of the main power rail, and the main power rail is short to ground. That's sort of as expected. Great. So now we just want to know, why is it short to ground? Now, why is it short to ground? We don't have any idea, because there's no sign of any kind of physical damage at all. Like, if we look for, do we see, as far as what we can see right now, do we see anything that looks burnt, like it has gotten hot? The answer is no. Now, it is possible that something's going on underneath this soldered on shield or the other soldered on shield. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to use a thermal camera to just see if we can find something that declares itself as kind of the thinnest wire on the board, and therefore the spot that's going to get hot when we apply that voltage back to this board. So I'm going to click back over to HandCam, and we are going to fire up our Seek Compact Pro thermal camera with the custom macro lens that we developed here in-house. What are you working on today, iPad Rehab? We are working on this phone, which is Brian's mom's phone. Brian works for NASA, and he's been telling us about cybersecurity, of which I know not very much, but I think it sounds really, really like a fun path. It sounds really interesting from what I have heard about so far. So what we're going to do is check for heat. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to connect power. I'm going to disconnect it here at the source so that I can plug it in really easily. Now we're going to flip this board over so that we can kind of see the exposed side, and we're going to look for a failed component. Now, there is a new recall out for the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, and before we look for this, I'm going to share with you guys, maybe I'm going to try to share with you guys what that is. So I've pulled that up over at Apple so that we can kind of see, maybe Apple does know what's really going on. So let me see if I can find a browser window that I can pull up here. Browser. There we go. Yep, so here it is. This is the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus service program for no power issues. So Apple has determined that certain iPhone 6s and 6s Plus devices may not power on. So it says they might not turn on due to a component that may fail. This issue only affects devices blah 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 within a limited serial number range. Now, when we look at something like that, we think, would they finally figure out? So from my point of view, how does an iPhone 6s or 6s Plus die? A lot of them get a image fault on the 5v7 image line from a drop. A lot of them get TriStar faults, which will take them out. So TriStar will go bad, but that's sort of related to charger damage. And then in both of them, they get these sort of sudden onset, could be anywhere, VCC main shorts, like this one has. And if we think about other signature problems, you know, there's a handful of them, but there's no one spot that fails. You certainly couldn't say this component fails on a certain number of them, because the VCC main shorts are all over the place. So I'm really interested to know, like, what is it that they think is wrong here? What's really funny is that they say, if you have a phone that won't power on, that you want to have serviced, then choose one of these options below. Let's see, where it says that before service, take your no power phone that doesn't turn on, back up your phone to iTunes, prepare your phone for service. This is service for a phone that doesn't turn on. So that's just dumb. And then it says, okay, find an Apple authorized service provider. So everyone knows there is no way that any Apple authorized service provider is going to be able to identify and solve any of those problems. Absolutely not. It is completely outside of any training. No. Apple authorized service providers could only harvest that phone and send it to Apple and give you a different phone. So they cannot and will not repair. There's no doubt. We've proven that many times. You can check on our channel for when we called up Apple authorized people and then read them a list of things that were very common. Like, can you fix a screen on an iPad that's cracked? No, they can't fix anything. Apple retail store, same thing. Those guys can't fix anything at all. Contact Apple support, to which Apple support is just calling people up on the phone, and then they will just tell you how to mail it to them. There is never has Apple fixed any of these phones and sent them back to that person. Not a single time. They always will harvest and swap you with somebody else's phone that they already have. All right, but I'm interested to see what does happen when we plug the serial number. We won't know the serial number until we get this phone to boot. So let's go back to trying to get it to boot. And we're going to click that off. Let's see if anybody in chat happens to know what is this mysterious component that fails. And I would love to just follow this phone, like, you know, to see what would happen if you really did send it in and say, did you check, you know, whatever thing it is that we ultimately find out here is going on. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can find the component that has failed. So let me make sure that you guys can see the thermal cam. All right, so there we go. So we're looking at camera. You know, this camera is shining down on the thermal camera. All right, and we can kind of see that resolution. All right, so now I'm going to connect DC power and let something get hot, and we're going to see what it is. All right, and we can see hot down here. All right, so we can see hot. Is there hot anywhere else? So I'm looking up the board. You may not be able to see me scanning this whole board. And I don't see anything else. So right here, when we look at that view, the shape that is the remarkably square-shaped square, that is what we know will always get hot but can't be the cause of a short. So this actually makes, you know, I'm not 100% sure that that whatever is causing the short is actually on this side of the board. So we can kind of put our temperature marker on there. Yeah, that's getting to be 200 degrees. So that is pretty hot. I think that we better just take a look to see whether or not there are similar components on the opposite side of the board. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to check the opposite side of the board. So let's give this camera a rest and let's go back. Let's see, does chat have any idea what is the thing? Time to jump the MOSFET. I try not to jump the MOSFET. Jumping the MOSFET is just kind of a pain. So we're going to take a look under the microscope. So let's turn off the hand cam and let's see what's going on down there. We're just going to look really close now that we're guessing that we have a problem in this area. So we're looking really close for physical damage. And I do see physical damage. Look at this physical damage on that dude there. Right? Do you see the capacitor that has, it's obviously broken? Right here. That's crunched up. I'm not 100% sure that's on the main power rail. But if it is, that's going to be it. So let's check against ZXW and say, hey, ZXW, let's pull up the 6S plus. So whatever we were working on last, I don't know. 6S plus, here we go. 6S plus. Oh, great. Please restart. Oh, ZXW is just drives everybody crazy now that they've changed to the newer version that has a lot of restarts. But that's what you get. All right, so we're gonna check this out. Let's see. Let's see if anybody in chat's just gonna help me out and tell me if the cap that looks messed up, is it actually on the main power rail? If not, then that's not the reason this phone's not booting. It might be a separate problem. So we got to find out, is this ugly looking capacitor that seems to be kind of in the hot spot actually on the main power rail, which is what we know is short? Or is it some kind of a speaker boost cap? All right, so let's see. So the guy that is ugly, I believe, is this one. And aha, it is on the main power rail. All right, so Brian, are you still around? Yep. So what we can see, I know that there's a delay between the phone while we're chatting here. What we can see is that the power rail that we know is short, we can see candidates. Any capacitor can easily become a wire. They just crunch together inside. And if we look at the candidates here on our software that shows us all the capacitors and chips on that power rail, and we look for a match of physical damage to that area of heat, then when I look back at the phone, I can turn it around so it's in that same view as ZXW, at least in theory I can. Yeah, so this is the same view of ZXW. Look at the bottom capacitor here with the two that are on the side. Can you see that as we compare the top one to the bottom one looks like it's kind of been in a bar fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means we're suspecting that that capacitor has actually identifies more as a wire, and so we're going to remove it. So we're going to remove this guy from the board, and I'm going to do that in the safest way possible. So I could use some mini hot tweezers or some hot air to take this off, but what we generally do with this that's fast and safe is just kind of rock it off with an X-Acto knife, because usually they've experienced enough heat that they're already loose. And so there we go. This guy, I think, is the reason why, what's separating your mom from the pictures of the nephews. So let's find out. We're going to first ask this capacitor that we just took off, hey, are you a wire? Now I will say that I've seen, I don't know, hundreds of VCC main shorts on iPhone 6s Plus. I don't think that I've ever seen this particular capacitor just go bad. Maybe somebody in chat has. Let's check in and see if anybody has seen this particular one go by. So what we're going to do is just a quick continuity test. A capacitor should not beep across in continuity mode like a wire, because it's not supposed to be a wire. So we're going to ask this guy, hey, are you a wire? And he says, yeah, I'm a wire. You found me. You got me. Well, that's unacceptable, bro. So we are going to take him and flick him across the room. There. All better. Now let's go back and just check on the main power rail, and we'll go back to the same spot that we were measuring it before up here at the top of the phone. And since we've taken out the bad Christmas tree light, now hopefully there's no other problem. So we're going to check first with the multimeter. Once I get it unhooked from this chair, my goodness. we're going to check with a multimeter to ask how is the resistance on the main power rail now, and let's find out. So I'm going to wake the multimeter back up, and we're going to do a diode mode test, red probe on ground, and now it's restored to normal 0.339. Great. So as far as I can tell, I think this phone has a reasonable chance of booting back up. Now, let's find out whether or not it's actually going to boot back up. And if it is, then we're going to suck all those pictures off. And then later on this one, I will come back and put this capacitor back. I'll replace it. I will replace it because it's easy to replace. There's nothing that's underfilled or in the way. It's wide open. There's no reason not to replace it because I bet that's the only thing wrong with this phone. But we're not out of the woods yet because there's a possibility that when this guy failed, that it may have caused a scenario. Maybe you see this in your line of work. What happens if you just pull the plug on a computer that is busy writing to the hard drive? You can corrupt the actual memory.
Kernel panic.
Yep. So there's a chance, and iPhones don't like that. So there's a chance that when this happened, it would have just kind of cut power to the whole device because all the battery power would then be going straight to ground. That may have bothered the flash memory, so it may not boot up. So we're going to find that out. So now it's time to test it. What I'm going to do is sort of loosely install this board back into this housing, and we're going to just see, can it boot? And if it can, then we'll hurry up and get all those pictures off before anything else can happen. But we'll also check, I'm interested, we'll see if we can check on that serial number and see whether or not we can, put it back together, and then you can go back down to that Apple store and be like, yeah, swap me for another one. What I'd really, really, really like to do, let's see, what was that capacitor? That one was C2331, C2331. It's a 10 microfarad traditional garden variety vanilla capacitor on the main power rail. I would love to go back down to the Apple store and just say, let's put that capacitor back on after we recover the data, and then say, well, haven't you checked C2331? Or if you take this in, can you just replace C2331? Or just like have a chat line would be hilarious. And then of course live stream it. That would be that would be super fun. I mean, it would be great if you could just say, like, can't you guys just mail this back to the mothership and then just sort of take off C2331 or whatever it was. All right, so I've put the board kind of loosely assembled with just plugging in the screen, none of the cables or antennas and stuff, battery, charge port, and now we'll see what happens when we plug it into USB power. Now, the battery itself may be completely dead, but we'll see what happens. Sometimes when they get a sudden short, they'll just sort of trigger a protection mechanism and then they'll just kind of turn off. So let's see what happens. So I don't see response here. What I'm gonna do is change from battery. Oh, I do see a response. I see, plug me in. Okay, I will. Here you go, buddy. Plugging it in. And there we go. I see an Apple logo. So here's the question. Will it actually boot or will it just loop? Will it just blink off and try again because it has some data corruption? So this is for all the joy. It booted. Great news. The phone did boot. And now one more hurdle. It has to actually have touch working. So it's got to have touch working. So I'm going to see if we can just kind of like type in. I can see that your mom here has a really strong password, not just those flimsy 4-digit ones like on my phone. All right, and we do, and we do have touch. Do you want me to pull it off screen and plug in the passcode so that you can, so you can see if the pictures are there?
Oh, no, that's fine. You can
right.
stream it.
Okay, great. Then we'll put in how'd she make up this passcode? This passcode is impossible to remember.
It's something to do with my nephew and his.
Okay, so it's meaningful to her because it looks pretty random. Okay, gotcha. I see. All right, so then, let's see. Well, here's the picture. Is that him? All right.
Probably. I've just seen it.
Yeah. All right, so let me try this passcode again. Capital, lowercase, switch to numbers. All right. It says that's not the right passcode, bro.
It would not surprise me that she gave me the wrong passcode.
Does your ticket have other passcodes, or is that the only passcode that's in there?
That was the only one that she gave to me.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so it's like it looks like initials and then birth date. So it's probably the other kid. So you're gonna have a path to data on this one, but without that passcode, it's not going to talk to the computer. So and it's not going to let me I guess I didn't plug in the home button. It's not going to let me see what the serial number is on it. And, but what I will tell you is that in my experience, that was the only thing wrong with this phone. So whether or not you want to pursue, screw you, Apple, and your component, your replacement program for this, I'm guessing, I really have no idea which one of the many faults that they're choosing to sort of say, since, we have a limited number I have no idea, because it could be lots of things. So I don't really know what they're getting at with that. I would like to know whether or not this phone qualifies, but once you call up Mom.
I actually have my girlfriend's calling her right now, so.
All right. Well, we can stand by for a second and let's check in with chat and see. Does chat? Do you know does anybody have any idea what kinds of things qualify for this, Apple recall for iPhone 6 or 6S or 6S Plus that does that? What version of iOS is that? 1.1? What are you talking about? Let's see. It should boot. Poor primer in the glue. I have no idea what chat is talking about. All right, let's see. Do you replace the cap or leave it out? This one I'm going to replace. So I don't know what's going on in here. Show him how small that cap is by putting a ruler under the microscope. Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have flicked it across the room. I will show you how small that is because it is super tiny. I will get a similar one from this new strip while we wait to see if we have the passcode. So let's look. It is kind of fun. It's whenever we do like news stuff just to say, hey, how big is this stuff? So this is a really similar size component to the capacitor that I just kicked off. Looks like this. Where did it go? Under the microscope. There we go. And I'm going to put it on my finger now under the microscope. Look how big my finger is. So I'm going to put it on my finger. So that is how tiny that is. There it is on my finger. That's what was taking out all those pictures. Super tiny.
Looks like we got a hold of her.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
all right.
She's talking to her right now, so probably like another 36.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you how small this is if we just click back to hand cam so that you can kind of see like a regular view. So here's my finger, and the dude that was taking out this phone was the size of that right there. Really, really, like right there. Pretty cool. All right, so your choice if you want to ask her how you want to deal with this passcode. I mean, we're kind of done, so we could kind of go offline, or we could see the magic.
she's slowly spelling it out.
the painful wait.
Alright. Looks like it's all capitals. Okay. It's all capitals, and it's HJD 719-2016.
Okay, so that's what I had except not capitals. So let me try that again.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so HJD. I hope she's going to know another password, 2016, because we'll have to change it. Yes! Way to go, Mom! All right, so there we go. Now we can see photos, and it looks like a whole lot of family photos. All are going to come back to her. All right, so there you go. Yeah, look at that. That little dude. That must be that's your nephew.
Yep, that's him.
All right, great. Good news for Brian. Good news for NASA and the world. Brian's mom's phone is saved, no matter what the Apple Store says.
Now I can teach her how to use cloud backup.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and change your password. All right.
Yes.
So for stream, that's it. This is just another example, and I've been doing this to encourage everybody to get a second opinion. If Apple tells you, hey, there's nothing that can be done, or if they refer you to folks that are quoting thousands of dollars, you know that's not your only option, and you should go get a second opinion. Go to your local independent repair store. Lots of us, like me, are Apple certified, but unauthorized, and therefore we don't work for Apple. We work for you, and we can figure a lot of stuff out and actually fix devices. Nobody knows that Apple doesn't really fix anything, so it's important to get that word out. So thank you, Brian, for being a good sport, and I'm going to click off of this stream, and thanks so much for participating. It's fun for everybody when we get to kind of hear a more detailed story. And thank you, Lisa Brett, for the shout out that I think helped to make Brian feel like this wasn't some kind of fly by night place. So there you go.
I'll have to tell her I'll work tomorrow when I see her.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't let Lisa down in the Fighting Eagles of Snow Hill High School. All right, stream. That is it for our stream. And Brian, you can hang on for